Welcome to the Choosing Happiness podcast with me, your host, Rüdrani Devi, the happiness lady. In these conversations, we will be discussing an uncommon way to find joy in your life with weekly special guests. Did you know you could choose your happy? Won't you come and play and discover how these magical tools could work for you? Let's do this. Well, howdy, y'all out there in podcast land. You guessed it, Rüdrani Devi, the happiness lady, back for another episode of the Choosing Happiness podcast. Bum, bum, bum. Based on this little yellow book, Choosing Happiness, an uncommon way to find joy in your life. And guess what, y'all? I got a repeat offender today. She barely made it on to the podcast because something about having to sweep the dirt off her roof. And she done found 2 headstones too. But without further ado, Julie Rieger, thank you so much for being my guest again. And can you kind of fill me in? Because you sort of blurted this stuff out and you bought a cemetery or you bought a church or a house, or what's this dirt thing about?
Right. Hi, everybody in podcast land. I'm curious what the zip code is in podcast land. I guess it depends what podcast it is. So maybe it's just 11111. So we'll just start with that for your zip code. Actually, I bought a house here in Santa Fe. And if anybody who remembers Rent, there is a song about Santa Fe in it. So anyway, I won't sing it. Maybe next time you can sing it from Rent. Anyway, so we bought a house, and it's old adobe, and these old homes they used to on top of the wood on these roofs, they would just put dirt as like insulation. So I was over at the house. So that's why I look like ass. That's that explanation. But the really interesting thing that happened is about a month ago. I was over there with our contractor looking at stuff. It's a decent sized property. I mean, it's in Santa Fe. We're considered downtown. So nobody has a ton of space. And we're looking around at the back fence, and I spy with my own eyes 2 headstones. So on these headstones, one of them, and it's funny because I ended up matching it up with my report from the Historic Society Division or whatever they're called here. And their names that were on the deed of the house at the time. So they had owned it at the time. And one of them, his name is Melitone Ortega. And he was born in 1874 and died in 1949. And his wife, Carlotta. Girl, I can't hear you, just so you know. You're still muted.
There we go. Yeah,
Right.
Okay, so did you look them up? Did you Google?
I did. Yep. I sure did. And not only did I Google, about 3 weeks ago, I had lunch with one of their descendants.
Okay, tell me more.
And his name is Weston. Isn't that cool? And no, well, actually, here's what's funny. So I put it up on Instagram, and I'm like, if anybody can help me try to track down who these people are. So I had all these really great sleuths that know how to access things that my old ass doesn't know how to access. And no, for real. Listen, I fantasize about losing my phone. So I don't have to deal with it. So I'm very anti.
Well, I need mine in the other room
for a long time, but I literally wish I could.
I walk away from mine.
What you said. Oh yeah, right.
I have a frog in my throat, so bear with me. We'll get through this together. And
Ribbit.
Yeah, I walk away from this sucker all the time. I leave it in my car, and an hour will go by, and I'm like, where's my phone?
Yeah, so I fantasize about losing it. But anyway, so a lot of people were looking stuff up. Then I get a message from a guy named Weston Archuleta, and those were his great-great-grandparents. And the family still lives here, it's the Archuletas, the Ortegas, and those are the 2 main families. And so when we had lunch, he gave me a folder about this thick about events that happened in the house with the family, all these things. And he's like, some bad things happen. I go, well, what's bad? What do you call bad?
I know, right?
And he's like, well, so-and-so, had a baby and lost it. like there, like, home birth kind of thing. There was an uncle that drank himself to death. There's all these other things. I'm like, well, honey, that's not bad. That's just life. And he goes, what? And I said, well, yeah, they're back, or they'll be back. Like this is just life, honey. We all die. Like
We're just cycling through,
we're born to die, and it's not bad. I don't really know what, that's why I needed to ask, what do you mean by bad? Like death isn't bad. And anyway, we formed this really cool relationship. So, so I actually believe there are a number of bodies buried there. So my joke is I bought a cemetery, and everybody's like, of course you did, because you have this book called The Ghost Photographer. So of course you're cool with it. I'm like, yeah. And the funny thing is, I even bought a sign about this big to go in the front of the house that says, beware of the ghost. Oh, and before I knew about the headstones. So yeah, so I bought a ghostly property, I guess. Makes sense. I was looking for a tax credit, to be real honest with you. But I'm like, I'm like, oh my God, I have headstones. And I start looking in the New Mexico law. It's like, hey, how many do you need to get a tax exemption? And that's where my head went, not the scary part, because, girl's not afraid.
I'm leaning into the energy of this, y'all. And, we do these classes about entities in access consciousness. And girl, you've got a plethora of them there. And it's not just the ones underground, it's the ones visiting.
Oh, girl. Yeah. Okay, here's the thing. And I say this with all the love in the world. New Mexico is maybe part of the United States, but weird ways it's not. Like legally it's part of the United States. Spiritually, it's still very much Mexico. And so it was very much a practice that you buried your loved ones in your backyard. Like, I promise you, there are more bones here because it's very old. This is also the oldest capital in the United States. And there are homes here that were built in the early 1700s, long before it was ever part of the United States.
That's why you have dirt on your roof.
That's why I have dirt on my roof. We have petroglyphs all over the state that are dated to at least 7,000 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
The spiral of life, that one, we have one too. Those have been found all over the world. And we have one here as well. Kokopelli, if you've seen the Kokopelli, the dancing, he's here too. So it's very old, very ancient. There's a lot of energy. People talk about the spirituality of it. And there's a tremendous amount of spirituality, tremendous amount of energy. There are creek beds that have broken native pottery in it. So there's a lot of activity here, which is why I think I was so drawn to it. It's like, even if you want to scare me, you can't. So let's chat. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
You should have coffee talk with all the ghosts.
I should, if I drank coffee, but yes.
Well,
weird. I'm one of those weird people. I'm very sensitive to bitter. I mean, just so everybody knows, you can find out through 23andMe if you are. So no, I don't like coffee or kale, but that's not this show. But I could have just chit chat with the dead people on my front porch.
We have to come up with something really clever. Actually, my producer is really good at that. She's always coming up with these little things, and then I build off of it.
Yeah, listen, I'm open, girl. She's also practically my neighbor 4 hours away. So come on down, and we'll figure out a good name for it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's been a really interesting journey so far, and I do want to apologize to all your viewers about that. I do look like ass, but that was the whole reason, is because I was outside sweating with my contractor, looking actually at my ceiling, but what I saw from my ceiling was the sky. So anyway, just a very long explanation for why my hair is in a ponytail and I'm still kind of sweaty.
You look beautiful.
But thank you very much. But last time we talked, I was really thinking about this, and so I kind of want to, if your audience is cool, I kind of want to turn the tables a little bit, and I kind of want to interview you. And let me tell everybody why, because you and I share this great interest in near-death experiences.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've read a lot of books. I actually know a lot of people who've had them. Very famous book is one written by, who's now a friend of mine. Her name is Anita Morjani, and it's called Dying to Be Me. Another one was written by a friend and actually made to a made-for-TV movie at Fox long before I was there. And his name is Danny Brinkley, and his book is
crazy.
His story is called Saved by the Light. Mm-hmm. And these are all stories of people who full on died, like flatlined, waking up in morgues kind of situations, and then came back. And I was thinking before, when we were kind of texting like, hey, come back on the show, let's talk about stuff. And I was thinking about this whole NDE thing. And what's interesting to me about it is that, like anything else in the world, I think there's a spectrum, right? There's spectrums for everything. And I think there's a spectrum for NDEs. Like there are people that can have like a glimpse, like that they died for a very short period of time. And then I think those that maybe could be a very short time, but there's like a very immersive, immense experience they had. Or people like Danny. I think Danny was gone. You read his book too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Was he gone about a half an hour? Is that about right?
That's what they determined eventually. But for him, it felt like days.
Right. It did. That's the whole thing. It felt like days for him. So I wanted to share a story of not me with an NDE, but of somebody that a friend of mine in LA. Oh, also NDEs is one of our in my book, I talk about her, one of our very best friends named Mona Miller, who lived 10, 12 houses up from us in Sherman Oaks. And she had an NDE, and she was the first person I ever met that had one. And what she saw when she was out of her body is that she saw the top of her head kind of open up on a hinge, and all this gold liquid start going into her brain. So here's what that meant, interestingly enough, because all the signs and symbols that we have in the world, in the universe, is that she ended up having claircognizance, which is effectively the knowledge that she is given, and she has no reason to know what she did. Like Mona wrote a book and had never read one. I mean, Mona knew about the 5 great religions, never studied it.
Wow.
Like Mona knew things because that was being,
so it was being downloaded or implanted or whatever,
poured in, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, she was the first person that I knew. So when my book came out, it's funny, a lot of people in the industry. So those that maybe didn't see the first show we were on, I was a president and chief data strategist at Fox Film. And so when my book came out,
Fox Film, y'all, early days.
No, Fox Film, not Fox News, y'all.
Fox Film.
Yeah, Fox Film. Yeah, Fox Film. But Fox has now was bought by Disney. So I was bought out of my contract during that time. I mean, when they purchased the company. But so after my book came out, all these people, because I knew a lot of people, I still do, from, the industry kind of thing. And there's just one really, really lovely young man. And he's young. I mean, I'm 50, soon to be 4, and he's probably still in his 30s. And he was a salesperson, an ad salesperson for ABC, a company owned by Disney. And he said to me, he's like, hey, would you mind having dinner with me? I have lots of questions. I'm like, happy to. Had a lot of those calls, but it was really fun.
Sure.
So we're sitting.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's like, I got to know more about me now. So me.
Well, the funny thing is like what they really like. The reason that they wanted to have dinner with me is I was just simply a mirror for them. It's like they wanted to learn more about themselves. Right. And I'm so happy to be a mirror for people. It's like I can tell stories and do whatever and help process things for people. It's totally fine. I've had many people that have been that for me. So anyway, he wanted to have dinner. I'm like, great, let's have dinner. So he's asking all these questions. He read it. And he had read the part about our friend Mona, because Mona died twice. The first time, she came back. The second time, she didn't. Right. And it was a very devastating time because she died like 5 months after my mom did of Alzheimer's. So it was a very rough year for me, 2011. Wow. So he started asking me about Mona, and he goes, well, I almost died once. I said, oh, really? Tell me about it. So he starts telling me about, he was living in New York. He was mugged. They took him to like this, I don't know, ransack, ratty ass place. He was in a tub, and one of the guys that drug him in there, took a gun, held it by, I don't own guns. So what is this part? The pistoly part? I don't know. Hit him with the handle. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very I'm one of those people. I'm very anti-gun.
They hold the part, like this, and then they clock you with the handle.
Right. That's what he did. So he was in this tub. He got clocked in the back of the head. He goes, I almost died. I said, really? Well, tell me, what'd you experience? He goes, it was the weirdest thing. I go, yeah, what's that? And he said, he goes, I had this whole feeling just come wash over me about how rude I had been to valet people, valet parkers. And I go, okay, tell me
Yeah.
more. He goes, well, I was kind of a dick. He's like, I was like, entitled. I was all this kind of stuff. He goes, let me tell you guys, I've never acted like that since. I looked at him. I said, honey, you died.
Yeah. There's life flashed before his eyes.
And he looked at me. He goes, what? I said, you died. You began the life review process. Because what the life review process is that you are made to feel how you made others feel. Mm-hmm. And it's a learning experience. It's not supposed to be a punishment. It is a learning experience. And I bet for some people it could feel like punishment.
Sure.
Calling all assholes, calling all Republicans. I'm a guest. I can say it. I can't say that shit on my show, but I can say it on your show.
You can say whatever you want, honey. You can even cuss.
Thank you.
It's quite all right.
Okay, then fucking Republicans.
Republicans if you want,
and I hope I get haters from this. Oh, do I ever? I really do. I love haters. Because that's why I don't like them, is because they hate so much. So, anyway, sorry to those that are on the line. I didn't say it about independence. And I'm gay, so you're welcome. But anyway, so, people can have really ones that can be really harsh, right? Because they were not very kind in this life. But it is to learn, because the reality is we're all coming back, and we've all been here before, and we're coming back again.
There you go.
And so this is for us to learn. And so what was interesting with my friend is that he actually heeded the call and didn't know what the call was, because he turned into this really sweet, kind man. He is, by the way, you'd love this guy. Very kind, never mean to anything, because he was felt how he made others feel. Right. So went into this life, but his was very brief. But then you have people like Danny Brinkley, and Danny had, like you said, maybe technically, physically gone for 30 minutes, but it felt
they pronounced him dead. They did.
Yeah. Well, he woke. I thought he woke up on a gurney, like with a thing over him in the morgue. Mm-hmm. I've heard lots of morgue stories. Very interesting. Anyway, so his was very different, right? His is the other side of the spectrum. Like my friend is on the left, Danny's over here on the right, where he was shown like what the future on this planet could be of mankind. He was shown how to help vets work through PTSD through making these beds. Right. So he was shown all of these things. That was more of an extreme. Right. So why I wanted to turn the tables on you to go back to where I was, girl, I wasn't there, but I can't imagine that you didn't die in Mumbai. How did you not? And I have a feeling you're not telling people. So I'm going to put you. Oh, look, we see the part of her hair. So that means that we are in a little truth here. And so I want to ask you about that part.
She's calling me out, y'all.
Well, because I could imagine that when you were writing your story, because listen, I know there's things about my story. There's a few things I held back, just a few things, because that's what we do, right? When you write a story about yourself, about your own life, you get a little scared about like coming out with everything. And so I just have this feeling that you didn't tell everybody about this part because you didn't want them to think you're crazy, even though you really are.
I am.
You are.
Pups. We all know that, and I can actually acknowledge that now. And, now I actually don't care about sharing, but at the time, let's see, I got shot in 2008, and the book came out in 2011. It took me that long to write it because I was in the wheelchair for a very long time, and the story wasn't done yet. But I struggle.
No, we always, by the way, with our memoirs, we always start writing before the story is even halfway baked. That's what happened with mine too.
It was the strangest thing. I really thought it was going to be one thing and it turned into another. And there was a portion that I had written that it was actually suggested that I take it out. Because they basically said, you're going to get all the crazies if they believe you. And if they don't believe you, they're going to lock you up.
Yeah. Because the worst thing is when you actually are really trying to tell a story that is steeped in truth or it's just honesty. This is steeped in your own honesty and what your experience was and what it made you, who it made you. that you don't feel crazy and you don't feel like you're a liar, but people want to call you that. Do you know how many people call me liar? Lots. Lots
Yeah,
of
they're like,
them.
you just want the attention. You're making it up. Well, I'm not going to say the guy's name. He's famous, but he works for Rolling Stone magazine, and he read through it because I wanted to get his opinion. He was working at CMT at the time, but he had worked at Rolling Stone magazine, and he was the one that told me I should write a book. So he reads through it, and then he gets to that one part, and he goes, "I think I'd take this piece out for your own protection."
Yeah. So let's talk about that piece.
Yeah, that piece. Okay, that piece.
Okay. So, I've just shared with your audience, kind of the spectrum and the different things that people experience, the life review part of it. So here you are. Let's set you back there. I know I don't mean to do this to you, but time travel a bit, put you back into that moment. You're under the table, right?
Yeah, it's this one.
And
a lot of real estate to this book, Soul Survivor.
You must.
I don't even look like
something
that
must
girl
have
anymore.
happened.
Look at this. But yeah, there was probably a good 20 pages I took out because there was so much. Well, there went all the other books. There was so much that took place, and it's so vivid that it feels like, I'll put feels in quotes. It's when your friend said he had this really weird feeling come over him. For me, it was like a warmth that, how can I even put it, that grabbed every cell in my body. And it was comforting, actually. So here I am, all of a sudden floating above my body and going, damn, that does not look good at all. And I thought to myself, there's going to be two people that won't get this. One will be my husband because I was married at the time. The other one's going to be my mother, but everybody else will get it because I'm a meditation teacher and do yoga and mantras and all the things, and I've lost her, so I'm going to pause. Howdy, y'all. Part 2. We had a little bit of a conundrum with the internets because evidently Santa Fe ain't grounded as well as Nashville, Tennessee. So we were in the middle of a conversation, which let's table that and get back to it. And I'm not avoiding the conversation.
No, we're talking like this is real time. We're like reporting. We're right now reporters. So, because here's what happens. We were talking about all of these spirits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this city and actually on the property that I bought. And I've been acknowledging them like crazy. We just re-acknowledge them. So they get really excited because especially with their heritage being Mexican, because they came from Mexico. Mm-hmm. And, for those that are familiar with Day of the Dead or Dias de los Muertos, is that what they talk about, there are two deaths. There's the death of the body, and then there's the death of when people stop talking about you. And so that's like another death on the other side. And so they're excited because I have their family talking about them again.
Sure.
Right. Because I just said earlier how I met with Weston, one of their descendants. And so they're excited because they're alive again. So that means they're more active. And so they are messing with my internet because that's it. Because remember their energy. So they're not doing it on purpose. Right. But there's a lot of energy. And I think it's just blasting shit out right now.
So she falls off the internet, y'all. I'm going to, tell you the rest of the story. And twice, gets kicked out twice. And then I'm finally like, okay, dudes, I know you're excited. We're happy to have you here. Can you take 2 steps back? You're welcome to enjoy the podcast. You're not welcome to interfere. So then everything shifted. Now we got it.
Here we are. And then I also grounded my computer. Mm-hmm. For those that understand about, that aspect of meditation, grounding, things like that, when you ground something, it makes it more stable, right? Mm-hmm. So like the roots of a tree, that's the physical groundingness of what I'm talking about. So I ground my computer when I have issues, and then here we are, we're talking.
Yeah. So yeah, Talk to the Entities can be a whole nother podcast. But suffice it to say, we are not the only ones on this planet. There's a lot more disembodied souls than ones walking around with bodies.
Yeah. Can I tell you really quick before we get in back to where we were with you? This is you should call this episode Whiplash, because I think that's what we're going to do to everybody, but we're having fun. So hopefully they are too. I started officiating weddings, and I've now done 2. And 2 very interesting things that have happened. They were both in Arkansas. And one was for my wife, Suzanne, her cousin, Chad, and his husband, Myron, and now husband, Myron. And then the second one was for my high school boyfriend, John, and for his son, Colin. And now here's what's interesting. Well, one is they're both doctors, which I think is weird, but I love healers. So I'm all about, I'll do whatever you want. If you're doing that, I'm here to help. But the physical healers. But both of them took place on native land.
Mm.
So the first one was Creek. I think it was Creek. The second one was Osage, because the second one was the most recent one. And it was really interesting because I sat in one of the pews, because they, build these like facilities where you can they have the chapel, then they have like the reception area. It's like all in one kind of thing. And I'm sitting in one of the pews before anything started, and I do my thing. I'm sitting there and I'm like grounding myself. There's also, they were descendants or ancestors that were no longer
Come on,
with
you guys,
them.
back up, let her speak.
Colin's grandparents.
Oh,
I knew they were
goodness.
there. So I just wanted to just get in my place before I
Yeah, I think we should call
the
this
ceremony,
whiplash.
all this kind of
Honestly,
stuff.
I should.
And then I open my eyes, the huge bay
So
windows.
Julie's
in
frozen
chapel.
again.
Hundreds of Native Americans standing there.
Do we
Hundreds.
pause? Do we keep going?
Hundreds. The internet hates me, or you. I'm not sure. But
mine picked out. So cute.
this is like part 3. This is kind of like hopefully it's just like we have our salad, our entree, and now we're going to at least get on to dessert now. So, but what I had, so we got interrupted, everybody. So this is, again, seriously, it's good. Should be called whiplash. But I was just sharing how when I opened my eyes after doing my grounded and my meditation before I did the service, I saw hundreds of Indians, Native Americans, that were in front of the window. So you're correct. There is, it's like how you feel that you're outnumbered by ants. It's like, I think we're outnumbered by spirits, but I think we need to move on. And because they need to stop bugging us, and let's talk about you again. I really no, because listen, I don't know. I'm telling you've never talked to me about an NDE, and but I know you had one. You had to have. So it's
Okay,
you. So put us
coming out.
Okay,
I'm coming out. So as I said, as I started to say, a friend who was trying to protect me basically said, don't put this in. And I mean, I suffered with that for a while because I feel like I'm lying now. I'm not telling the whole story. But if you imagine these terrorists come in, they look like children. They're wearing, ball caps, Nike shirts, this kind of stuff. Too. They look like they could be in high school. Okay. Tiny little, they look like Indians. They were Pakistani. I mean, I don't know. Please don't judge y'all. Yeah. I thought that they were disgruntled employees, but I saw the ammunition on them. And I mean, like, for those of you that are actually watching, it was like strapped all the way across.
right.
And these are hundreds of bullets, on these strap things. So that's these are automatic weapons. And I'm registering this in seconds. I'm like, oh, this is not good. So I said, everyone get under the table now. There were six of us at our table. We all dropped. We're all pushing up underneath as much as we can. Most people, you do this fight or flight thing. So people either froze and got mowed down, or they got up to run away and they got mowed down. And there we were. I thought, we're going to play dead. That's what we're going to do. And I got that idea from an episode of The Sopranos, where they're in a restaurant and Tony Soprano knows there's going to be a hit and they're eating their pasta. And right when the guy comes in to take this guy out, he goes, drop! And they all dropped under the table. They shoot this guy. They drag him through the kitchen, roll him up in something, and throw him in the dumpster. And so again, split second thinking, I just said, everybody get under the table now. It saved 4 out of 6 of us. My friend got shot in the head. And all of his brains and everything were all over me. And they did shoot me. I got shot, my right tricep was shot out. My right quadricep was shattered. And I had one graze my neck to the point now where my whole face is swelling and I can't breathe. And I'm thinking, this is it. And all of a sudden I got really light. Now, you mentioned your friend felt this rush or something.
Kind of wash. Like it's because here he is, like, so the similarities, just to help everybody out here, is my friend was in a gnarly bathtub and he gets whacked on back of the head. So he's bleeding, right? And you can think there's a panic. And then there's you're under a table, you've been shot. But then there was this something washed over him.
Yeah. For me, I felt light. All of a sudden, it was everything that was going on around me, which was, grenades and everything else, was background noise. It's like it got like somebody had hit a mute button where you hear the TV in the next room. You can sort of hear it.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Yeah.
And I was so disassociated with that all of a sudden, and I noticed that I'm floating up and I feel.
Because you were dead. That's why you're disassociated with it. Let's just say it. You were dead, sister. You were dead.
I had a near-death experience. Yeah. Well, near death. Yeah, I was dead. At that point,
you were dead. They call it near because it didn't take.
Right. Yeah. I had a choice. I will go into that. So here I am floating.
Anita had a choice too, by the way. It was her father that gave her a choice. He said to her, if you want to, if you want to come with me, you can. If you want to go back, you can. And her response to him was, because she had cancer. And her response was, I don't want to go back with my body like this. I don't want to live I don't, because what if I told you that it would be gone in a certain amount of time? Yeah. And so she went back, and within 3 days, there was no cancer, no sign of cancer in her body. She's written up in medical journals as a medical miracle. Continue. I just want to give context to people for this.
What's the name of her book? I forgot.
Anita's is Dying to Be Me.
Yeah. Dying to Be Me. And you guys, okay, I got it on audio, which is really cool because then I get the energy of her voice as well, and it was, there were moments where I was cleaning my house and I stopped short, like, oh my God. And then I got like the creepy crawlies because I felt like I know what she's talking about. And I wasn't sick.
Right. But you were shot. It is right. Exactly. It's listen, there is a menu the size of Cheesecake Factory because that's the biggest menu I've ever seen. It's like a book. It's like a novel of the different ways to die.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we're probably all going to check them off by the time we're really done. So being shot, that's one of them. Having cancer, that's another. Having somebody hit you in the back of the head with the handle of a pistol is another,
It was very interesting because I had more of this warmth that embraced every cell in my body. And I thought, this feels awesome, and then I thought, so I started to say the only two people that aren't going to get this are Celeste, my mother. And at the time I was married and, the now ex. But I'm fine with this. Here I was, peace, love, and understanding. I meditated every day. I taught meditation, 4 or 5 times a week and all this stuff. I ate tofu, whatever. I was like down this other path completely. And it was this experience that actually brought me to where I am now, eating, red meat and drinking a martini. But
so you felt light.
I felt light.
You felt the TV was on in a distance. What next?
Then I saw this being of light in front of me, and I was squinting to try to see who it was. And then telepathically, I knew it, and this is probably from my Catholic upbringing, that it was a Blessed Mother who had come to me before, had animated herself when I was in church as a child, standing there because I was going to be a nun. And she said, that's not your path. That's not your path. And I got in a lot of trouble for telling my father that, he backhanded me at the table. That's blasphemy. What are you talking about? Well, she would show up periodically in my life. I remember I had a car accident once and she showed up, and then there was, where I hit my head on the dash so hard that I had a big pip Jenny right here. That's what we call it in the South. And I blacked out. I didn't remember, all of a sudden there was a police officer knocking on the glass. And then I was clairaudient. Then I could start hearing things. So here I am telepathically talking to the Blessed Mother. And
so for me, we're back in India now.
We're back in India. I'm above my body. What the weird part was I kept going back in and popping back out.
Yeah, that's another thing. So let's stop on that. That's very common too. And I'm stopping on this just for your audience, not for you, obviously. But there is, and I actually know specific people. One was my aunt, and slash who was also my godmother, who showed me herself. I was in Los Angeles. She was in Buffalo, New York. She showed me going in and out of her body. And I knew the next morning early, I was going to get a phone call from my cousin telling me that she passed, and she did. But going in and out is very common. Harper Gray, her grandfather, when he was making his way to the other side, he was going back and forth, and I was talking to him. And that's when she called her grandmother, and her grandmother said, "Who's Julie?" And she goes, "What?" And she goes, "Who's Julie?" She goes, "Your grandfather's been in there talking to somebody named Julie."
Oh,
he was talking to me.
Right.
So we go in and out, right?
You gotta clarify something for me then, because I remember I'm jumping to another piece, but I will come back.
Yep.
I remember having some family over for dinner, visiting from Atlanta, my brother and his kids. And then that night, I felt something touch my leg and open my eyes, and there was my great aunt standing there. And my sense was she was going to everyone and saying goodbye.
Yes.
My brother had the same experience. And I don't remember who else, but there was maybe 3 or 4 of us.
Well, that's the final goodbye. I mean, that's the goodbye. So there's the in and out that happens. That happens before the final, because I got a final goodbye from Mona. So in the middle of the night, so she died in a car accident. She was thrown out and hit her head on a rock. And I mean, because if you're going to take Mona out, you got to take her out, because she was not easy to kill.
Oh my goodness.
And in the middle of the night, she came to me, kissed me on the forehead, she was very touchy feely, but she was always like a snuggler. She was like, kiss on the forehead is like what a parent or grandparent would do, or like a authority, right? Yeah. She kissed me on the forehead and said, "Everything's going to be okay."
Wow.
I remember it like it just happened. A couple other people had the same experience. So that was the goodbye. Okay. Different, right? Different than the going back and forth. That is different, because you're not done yet. When you're done, you go do goodbyes. When you're going back and forth, so you, under the table, you were going back and forth. Yeah. You're going in and out. Very common.
I would be in there, and then it was like, oh my gosh. But I wasn't feeling pain. That's the weird part about it. The difference was all of a sudden somebody turned the volume up on the TV. And then again, it'd be like I was pushed underwater, because all of a sudden it would be muted again. And then pushed underwater, meaning the sensation of not being able to hear.
Yes.
But I'd float back up again. And every time I would float up, I was getting a bigger picture of what was going on. I saw where a grenade had been thrown into the Steinway piano, and it exploded. There was also this beautiful glass, which I had heard it shatter, that they had either thrown a grenade or had shot it down, but it was, you heard it shattering. And so I got to see the POV of that. I saw the Indian wedding party, where not one was spared. They came in afterwards, and they were at the desk.
Oh, it breaks my heart.
Yeah. So I saw all these bodies, and I saw a lot of vapors, like coming from bodies, just disappearing.
Spirits that they were exiting.
Sure. But so confused. And yet here I was feeling warmth and compassion. And
so that's another very common thing. I'm going to just interrupt you a couple times for your audience to explain things is, so if anybody has ever experienced a like Civil War site, great example, like a battlefield, you'll actually get a lot of spirits that are there, a lot of ghosts, and they go through like a looping, because they kind of still don't know they're dead.
Oh gosh. Girl.
So, and that happens when people die, when their body dies of something that was shock and unexpected. Like my grandmother, who was ill, she died. There's no looping. My aunt, who I mentioned, my mother had Alzheimer's. There's no looping involved, right? But when there is like that shock, like for you, if that would have been your final act, you could have very well, you probably not, because you're a higher level spirit, but other people who weren't could very well be looping in that area. So I'm just sharing. I feel like I'm a professor of dead people.
I love it. Well, then
Dr. Death.
That's right.
Or Dr. Dead.
And
just call me Dr. Dead.
I love it. I love it. So I had to now I have to step back for a second, because you just said something that reminded me. When I first bought this house, I moved in, but I hadn't even put my other house on the market yet. and I had to go to LA because I was a film producer. And I come back, the movers move all my stuff in, and I noticed that the shed door is open. And I thought, who left the shed door open? So I go out there to close the shed. I turn around and I see all these young boys with muskets and their little, Dixie hats or whatever they are.
Civil War.
And here I am. I live in the center of it. And this guy's like walking right towards me, and I'm like freaking out. And I just sort of moved over, and he kept going like he didn't even see me. There was another one, and he smelled the high heaven, and he was like pulling on something to get some powder out. They didn't have shoes.
They're looping.
They didn't even have shoes. It was like they'd lost their shoes.
Well, no, they were probably killed at a time when they weren't actually at battle. They were probably taken by surprise. So keep in mind, these are things when you die, when you don't expect it. Right?
Yeah, perhaps the live ones took their shoes.
And well, no, they if you're telling me what they were, if he's sniffing something, they were probably killed at night or in the morning when they weren't at battle. And he probably had their shoes off, and maybe what he was doing was rolling a cigarette, or he was doing something. And
that was actually packing his gun.
And they were getting ready. One was packing a gun, one was doing whatever. And so they're looping they're looping. So wait, is that your old house or your current house?
This is the house I'm in now, but I did have a shaman come and help me.
Okay, you had him. Okay, because they need to go on.
Area, and what was really weird is they weren't wanting to go. Now this is going to sound weird, and it freaked me out. And then it made me explore more. I didn't know what to do because it was nighttime when we did it. So I just held the flashlight and said, "Go to the light." And then I felt I know, so corny. And then all of a sudden I felt they just came rushing at me and went through my body and out.
Yeah.
So when you see the show Ghosts, where the guy walks through,
totally know what we're talking about.
That's real. That actually happens.
Well, they used you as a vehicle to get where they needed to go.
Yeah, that's
what happened. Yeah, you were a vessel to get to. You were like you're a little spaceship for them to get where they needed to go. And
we're not going to do that again, though. So for those of you ghosts listening, we've got another way to get you there.
Anytime I've encountered a spirit that I know is looping, I will help them get where they need to go, because the thing is, they're just like killing time, even though time isn't our thing. But the reality is like they're not able to cross over and learn what they needed to learn, go reunite, with their crew. Right. They can't reunite with loved ones. They can't, because, we travel in packs when we reincarnate and all of that. We have like a spirit family. We come in different relationships when we're back in bodies. Wow. And for them to not have the ability to go reunite, I think is a crime in itself. Yeah. So to be able to, so you actually did a huge service, but let's go back to you. So you felt, so you're seeing these things happening. You're like, you see a grenade hit a piano. You see the glass now shatter that you once heard, but now you're seeing it. Then what?
So then, I'm starting to talk telepathy with this being. And that's when I recognize the energy as the Blessed Mother. She's just so bright that all I can sort of see is her face, sort of. And instead of me getting a recall of my life, what she shows me is the possibility of a future if I decide to go back in. And
by the way, Anita did not get she did not experience that either. She experienced the same thing that you did. Like her father showed up and gave her a choice. Right. It's kind of like, God, what was that show? Like, do you want to play the game or pick a curtain kind of thing? I mean, it's like you're picking a curtain, and that's what she got was. And so you didn't have to go to that. Let's make a deal. Thank you. Like, do you have lipstick or bubble gum in the bottom of your handbag? I used to carry weird things in my handbag because of that show. When I was a kid. So you didn't have to do the life review because you were being given a choice. And I'm going to tell you one thing that Anita has struggled with is she gets a lot of people that come to her and say, why you? I lost my father. Why wasn't he given a choice? No, I understand. But she gets a lot of that because she shared that aspect, of her story. And you're sharing your aspect of that story. Well, and the whole thing is, who says they didn't?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like with Saved by the Light, when I heard him saying all this future stuff, I actually saw plate tectonics. I was given specific dates. A very, and I'll put it in quotes, significant one is 2025, but I'm getting it in 2008. That I'm going to get a choice to step up.
So that's an earthquake if you're talking about plate tectonics.
Yeah, that was so. And people fall
And
into
you live in an area, interestingly enough,
Mm.
that actually is, because in the middle of the United States is some of the most dangerous potential earthquakes. So in Indiana, there's a fault, and it also runs through Tennessee.
And we have a lot of tornadoes, and we've had a lot of crazy stuff lately that I got to see in advance. I got to see a cold summer, which didn't make sense to me because it gets freaking hot here. But we've had, it's like the weather right now has a dual personality.
We could have seen it someplace else too,
It's true. It's
Yeah,
true.
you could have seen it
Always
someplace
looking
else.
but
Because what they were showing you was, to me, what it feels like, and I just can say what it feels like. I don't know for a fact, obviously, but it feels like they're showing you the slow extraction of mankind,
yeah, making me aware.
making you aware of the
And,
slow extraction.
and
Well,
then well, go ahead.
well,
You know,
just because the earth can't handle all these people, and
Mhm.
it's been so damaged. And once like Mother Earth gets rid of us, she can regenerate and she's fine. But
It is
there's
very peoply. It's
do
very
what?
people.
It's very peoply, and I'm not saying that it will be extinct. I'm going to retract that, but probably a lot of people won't survive, because it has to be resized. It has to be resized, I think.
I saw that 2/3 of the people on the planet were going to be gone before the end of my life.
Yep, there you go.
And I saw also that I had a great opportunity to help people that were searching to know that they were okay, which was a weird way of putting it because all we do is judge ourselves and each other, and we make ourselves wrong. We don't want people to get to know us because we think we're wrong. We don't think we deserve stuff. All this, like humanity stuff I was getting.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got that message,
Can I add to that too really
Yeah.
quickly? What I think is really interesting is because you say we're all okay.
Yeah.
One of my teachers and also one of my closest friends and my podcast host, we have a podcast called Insider's Guide to the Other Side, and her name is Brenda Villa. And Brenda early on said to me, because I was so grieving and so devastated by the loss of my mother and the loss of Mona. And she said to me one time, she goes, well, what's the worst thing that's going to happen to you? And I was being sarcastic because I am. And I said, well, what if I die? The first thing she said to me, she goes, you'll be back.
Yeah.
She goes, you're okay no matter what.
Mona
and I've held, do what?
Was Mona your teacher? Because I'm getting this image.
Brenda was my, I'm going to call her my preschool teacher. She's the one who introduced me to a lot of things.
All right. She's your stepping stone.
And she's with me a lot, guiding me. I mean, she is, and she loved attention. So she's telling you to talk about her because she loves attention. Brenda is full on a teacher. I mean, if Mona were still here, I think that Mona would have taught me a lot more, but Brenda's been my full on, she's full on. And so there's a little bit of, because I know people get really afraid with things that are going on in the world. And I can understand because I've had my moments and things that you talk about that you just brought up. And I just want to tell everybody, and just to reiterate what you said is you're okay no matter what. Right. You just are. You're okay. If there's an earthquake and you fall down the middle of it, you're okay. If you drown in a flood, if you are some of these people who lost their lives on the the submersible that went down to the Titanic, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. Because you're okay. This is what life is.
That was sudden too. I mean,
it was very sudden, and you're okay.
An interesting choice, because this is another thing that was pointed out to me, is that I actually chose it.
Yeah.
And when it was put to me that way, I went, oh, okay, so what's right about this I'm not getting?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like I would never give that experience back. I've got to tell you right now, those terrorists did me a favor. I got out of a bad marriage. I've written 3 best-selling books. The 3rd one speaks several languages. I just finished my 4th book, Julie, that's getting paginated right now. And I'm working on my 5th, which I had halfway written before I started the 4th one. And then I went, oh, this one first.
Pivot.
Right. I love facilitating classes. I got shown also, I believe, I don't know if it's going to exactly show up this way, but I saw myself on a stage talking to millions of people. And that can also be this type of platform. It was just the energy of, guess what? You're going to show people that you can get through something like that.
You want to know why I knew you had an NDE?
Did I say something wrong in the book?
You never said a thing. why I know you had an NDE
Oh,
is
please.
because of all the work you do now. Everybody I know that has had an NDE, that has seen the other side, experienced other things, have no fucking choice but to go help heal others. They heal themselves first because
Mm-hmm.
you are required to do that,
Yeah.
not just physically, but emotionally. But then they go out and they start healing others. Look at Danny Brinkley and what he's done with his life.
Yes.
Look at what Anita did. And I only knew it because I know these people, right? I knew what Mona did after she had hers.
Mm-hmm.
She was more of a community healer. She wasn't like she didn't have a pod. There wasn't no such thing as a podcast.
Right.
It wasn't a podcast back then.
Thank you.
And seriously. And, but I knew because of the work you do and the effort you put behind it and how important it is to you and how it is your life that there was no way you didn't have an NDE.
Yeah. Well, you outed me.
So tell us more. Is there more you want to tell? Like, what else did you see that you want to tell us about? And
once I got, when I say she, it wasn't really a gender, but I knew it was the energy of, once I heard that, there was this, God, how can I put it? I'm going to put it in quotes. There was a need for me to get started. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. And what was even more interesting is that finally, okay, back in the body, still not in pain.
How long did it? So you're back in your body and you did not feel pain. Okay.
I did not feel pain, but I'm sure it was shock now because the pain came later. And I heard somebody in the kitchen going, if you want her to survive, you have to come now. And I saw my tricep laying next to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, that don't look good. And I said, do I really want? I mean, I had like a second thought for a split second. And then I just threw my arms up and said, drag me. And this guy.
You had an Anita moment where it's like, I'm not sure I want to go back like this.
Yeah, I did. But you
should learn to negotiate better. If you have this again for any reason, learn to negotiate better, like she did with her father, which was, I'm not going back in that broken ass body. If you would have said that, girl, I'm just kidding. I'm just fucking.
Might have.
Learn to negotiate, people. Everybody negotiate better. Ladies, negotiate better.
Thank you for that.
I don't mean to make light of any of this. I think humor makes it easier. It's kind of like sugar helps the medicine go down,
you know what? It doesn't even affect me anymore. I feel like I'm talking about a Netflix movie, to be honest. It does. And the thing is to keep going with that piece. I mean, when they finally got me to where I was going to have surgery, because I popped out of my body 2 or 3 more times in the hospital. Mm-hmm. Here's another piece I left out of the book. You ready for this? Evidently, I died again. Because
not surprised,
with a sheet over me, and I kept seeing legs going by. So I kept trying to grab the leg, and I managed to grab a skirt, and it was a nurse, and she screams, brings somebody else back to pull the sheet off of me.
And it's the greatest story.
I can't talk because my neck is. This part I left out on purpose. I didn't think anybody believed me on that because it's so comical to me. And she can't speak English. She speaks Hindi. So they're like, I'm like, I can't talk. This is out to here.
Right.
So finally this Indian doctor.
And girl, you're making up for all that time you couldn't talk.
Boy, I tell you what, girl.
Anyway, so back to, so she's flipping out.
Yeah. The doctor comes, he's Indian, but he has a British accent. He speaks English. Mm-hmm. And he said, decided to stay with us, did you?
Now, keep in mind, you and everybody else is Hindu religion very much believes in all of this, right? Like,
and my name is Rüdrani, which means
exactly
one who takes the pain away from others, and Devi means God. Don't tell me that's not heavy-handed.
Exactly right, right. A little destined for this.
I went into my room when I was in the hospital to meditate with me,
right?
Because they thought that a deity had.
So you hit okay. So you and for the record, this not surprising to me at all because because you still had the physicality part of it that you were dealing with, and how could you not? Now, did you get during that time? When you were had the sheet over you? Were there other visitations that you got, other visions that you got, or was it really brief?
I didn't know how I even got there. It was the weirdest thing. I felt like I'd popped into another lifetime or something. It was the strangest feeling. And then when they finally did the surgery, I was in so much pain, he couldn't move me. The doctors couldn't move me. So what I said was, because it was excruciating, I kept blacking out. And so what I finally said, I don't even know where this came from. I said, gas me, and then put me on the table. And he said, well, just so you know, you may not wake up because the bullet is lodged on your femoral artery. And if we go to remove the bullet and there's a puncture, you've already lost a lot of blood.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, then we need to call my husband and tell him where to find the body.
Mm-hmm.
So this is before texting, or texting had just started, but we didn't have that kind of phone. And so I gave them the number. They called them.
Also in India, you
Yeah.
probably weren't able to text.
Right.
I used to do international business. I'm with you, girl.
You get it. So
Yeah.
we call him. I had already called him earlier, which is a whole nother story, because he just fell to the floor and I didn't even know. He was trying to play it cool. And he's the reason why all of the United States knew it was happening, because he called all the news stations because he's, wanted to be famous. I'll just say it that way. Anyway,
Yep. Not surprising either.
he did more interviews than I did, girl.
He wanted attention.
He sure did.
Yeah, sure.
He carted me around in that wheelchair, and then the minute he got up, you had to start walking again. But that's another story. Anyway, I do wake up in the room, and there's this. I thought it was a nurse sitting there. It wasn't. It was the bellhop. I mean, every time I would come in, he would, I'd have him carry one little bag or whatever up, and I would tip him. And so he had actually been in the cab with me, had gone to the hospital with me,
Oh,
and was taking care of me. And I didn't realize.
what a sweet young man.
So I didn't realize it until he said, "Are you okay, Mom?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he goes, and I look at him closer, and he said, "So can I go home now?" And I said,
Oh, I have chills.
Yes.
Oh, my body. Oh, my God.
and then he said,
And it's 90 degrees outside. Oh, my God, I have chills.
said
It's amazing.
"God is good." And then he took off.
Oh,
And that angel made sure I got to the hospital, did not leave me, did not leave my side.
right.
Yeah. The hair.
Beautiful. Oh, I know. Same, by the way. Like, I love him.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That's amazing.
I mean, he was probably, I don't know, 14, 15. You can work underage there.
So here's the thing. You talking about him. He's alive again.
Yeah.
And that was him. He's alive again. You brought him back. So you talking about this experience and these people is you're bringing them back. They're alive again. You're talking about like the service, his last act, his last service was with you.
Yeah. He adored me. They all did. I mean, I love everybody. I hate to say it. I actually really care, y'all. I pretend like I don't, but it's not true.
That's right.
Damn it.
It's a burden.
What you gonna do?
Okay, so to summarize, you died twice.
Yeah.
You're a cat.
I got
You got 7 more left, baby.
Oh Lord.
You're a cat. Meow.
Easier. If it's gonna continue to happen, I would appreciate it not to be so extreme,
Right. Well, I want to like just do a brief pause because I think we're, even with all of our my tech, your tech issues, we're probably past our time. But I want to just for your audience, I just want to clarify that we can talk about this stuff pretty lightly because for you, there's been a lot of distance from that. Yeah. Both physical and time, obviously. And I've had so many experiences with so much of this that I'm very comfortable talking about it. And the way we talk about it is not being dismissive. It's actually just, it is what it is. And, and if anybody who's listening has lost somebody recently, they're probably going through some very heavy grieving and maybe offended by maybe how we are kind of treat it lightly. And we don't treat it lightly. It's just to be able to talk about it and to share it. And for people to be able to kind of take it in, is that humor helps with that.
Yeah.
And
laughter gives back to the earth too. That's all she requires is our laughter.
There's no doubt. But for some reason, I feel like somebody's going to watch who just lost somebody. And I just wanted to bring this up because
I'm grateful.
Because I didn't go through your side of it. I went through the side with I was on the living side. Haven't died yet that I'm aware of. But I sure the hell have grieved. Yeah. And I know what it feels like. And I just feel like you have some people that needed that. I don't know. it's
you saying that. And I totally get that piece as well. Cause I have been on the other side of that as well.
Yeah.
And now I'm in the space because I've been given information that they don't want us to grieve. Really
but we do. And I think the reality is that we do. And I think part of what they don't want that they know helps with the grieving is to know that their spirit is still here and is still with them and loves them. It's not that they're gone. They're not, because I always hate to use the word dead or because people think it's permanent. And the only thing that's permanent is the physical body, right? The biological part of who we are, our birthday suits effectively. The rest of us lives on forever. And when I started to understand that, my grieving got a lot better and a lot easier. And I didn't understand it at first. And so I hope what happens for people is that they can understand that that your loved ones are around. Your loved ones could very well have gone through something incredibly mind-boggling and mind-blowing, that what you did, you died twice, right? And you wanted to stay, and you were able to have that choice. I don't know if everybody gets it. I don't think they do. Is this my take on it? But just for people to know that your loved ones are around, and they just might not be in the physical body, but I can still feel my mother. She comes up and from my back, and she wraps her arms around me. And it just brings tears to my eyes when she does it. She showed up last night when Suzanne made a joke about some dumb shit I do. And my mom was laughing her. I mean, she just popped up and laughing her ass off, and she left. And so I guess what I would say to people is that if you're grieving hard and if you feel like they're lost forever, they're not. And you can form a different kind of relationship with them. Because I think that's, to your point, why the other side doesn't want us to grieve, because they know that they're still here. I don't know why I just felt the need to go through that little soapboxy thing. But I just wanted to share that.
And I want to acknowledge you for actually having me come out, because it feels good to finally get the story out there. And I don't know how many people are actually going to see it. I don't plan on rewriting the book, but if you guys want to know the rest of the story, I'll just do a little plug for Soul Survivor. It came out in 2011, as did this one. Also came out in 2011, because I ended up writing it in 3 months after I wrote that one. And this is about running to Boston when they told me I'd never again.
And this is my dog Suki, who just yawned, who's coming. Hi, baby. I know. I love you too. I love you too. Okay.
Oh my God.
I know, my baby. I know. I love you. Okay. Yes.
Well, this has been tremendous. We're going to have to do this again. And I saw that.
She's like, Mother.
I want my walk now, is what she's saying.
Well, she had that earlier. Oh no, you're right. She got cut short because of my contractor. I know we were going to blame Michael. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for letting me interview you, and thank you for real, and thank you. And I say that was a little fun-ish way to say it, but thank you for telling your truth, your honesty about what you experienced. And I think people at this time know probably you well enough, especially those that watch this, that you're the last person I would ever say that's full of shit. You exude honesty and truth. You say things whether or not people want to hear them or not, but you actually were now able to even set yourself free with this part of it. I actually have more questions, but more about some other details about the the ground. We're going to talk later about it.
I'm happy to get on your podcast too, guys.
I would love to have you actually. So anyway, I just thank you. This has been like heart opening for me. It's been fun as well. Frustrating with the technology, but we had a lot of spirits around us. And it is a little chaotic, but you know what? Chaos can be awesome.
Yes, it can. Absolutely. Because when there's chaos, you actually do something. You actually accomplish something, because a lot of us will sit on our laurels unless something comes along and pushes us out of the bird nest. Okay, you got to fly now.
Yep, I won't do that because I have a friend named Laurel, and I'm not going to sit on her. But yes, sometimes we just sit and we don't move.
That's right.
But thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for this. This was actually very healing for me too. Do what?
Where can people find you? And I'll make sure the info's underneath y'all, including a book, my books.
Got it. Yeah. My book is The Ghost Photographer, published in 2018 by Simon & Schuster. And probably the best way to find me, the podcast is Insider's Guide to the Other Side. It's a iHeart podcast, but you can find it anywhere. And then if you want to get in touch with me, honestly, Instagram's probably the best way. It's Julie Rieger, JulieRieger, Writes, WRITES, Julie Rieger Writes, on Instagram, and just kind of DM me if you have a question or an issue. I mean, that's the other thing. I have people that listen to my podcast that will say something on Instagram, like on a DM, and I'll write back. I'm like, here's my phone number. What's yours? Do you want to talk about this?
Oh, wow, you're so generous.
And so and they're like, wait, what? Wait, no, what, huh? Like they panic a little bit. I'm like, they're like, they're sweet. They're like, you're like a celebrity to me. And I'm like, I'm just like you.
Celebrity.
So, but the thing is like, but I don't see the world like that. And because I dealt with celebrities and they're normal, most of them. But I'm happy to, I'll talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes if there's something that I think I can do to assist. And so just, hit me up on that and we'll see where we go. But it's Julie Rieger Writes on Instagram, little verified account, just FYI.
Oh my.
Yeah.
We got to check and look. It's a real deal.
Because we're authors.
Because
there are
2 other people pretending to be me. So if you're going to reach out to Instagram, let's just get the check mark.
Yeah, they did mine because they said that, what do they call it? You are now a public figure. So I got the public figure check mark. But anyway, so that's the best way to get in touch with me, and happy to respond to folks. And if I take a while, it's just because I'm renovating a house.
She got to sweep the dirt off the top of her house.
They're shoveling dirt. I'm actually going to put a little video on my Instagram today of the shoveling of the dirt off. But anyway, thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me turn the tables on you. It has been an absolute pleasure. I must now jump to my nonprofit that I am on the board for called
Before They Fire You.
Before they fire, where I work for free, but it's a nonprofit here in Santa Fe called Life Circle, and it is a senior adult day center.
Oh, nice.
Because we're having, we're getting ready to jump into the senior tsunami right now, the silver tsunami of dementias, Alzheimer's, all of the memory care things. And so because I lost mom to Alzheimer's, that's why I give my time. So I must go give my time because I'm due to do that literally the second. I will call you later. I love you. Big hugs. Alyssa, thank you. You are a rock star. And we will talk soon.
Okay.
And goodbye, everybody.
Ciao, ciao, y'all. Please subscribe and share if you know others that could benefit from this conversation. All right. Ciao, ciao. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for choosing happiness. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, share, and give us a like. And if you want more happy, subscribe to the Choosing Happiness membership where you can play directly with me, Rüdrani Devi, the happiness lady. How does it get any better than that?